All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at SCL Mortgage. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here. I am ready to break down the Denver Nuggets playoff series versus the LA Clippers that starts tomorrow in just over 24 hours from when you're probably listening to this one. Denver's going to play at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time, and we're recording this at 10 a.m. Mountain Time the prior day. And we've got one more chance, one more opportunity to seize everything. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. To talk about this series and answer some questions, and just I'm going to share my final kind of playoff predicted rotation for Denver in Game 1. It's actually pretty nuanced, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts for sure. But should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be a very interesting episode. I've got a whole bunch of questions from you guys, so thank you so much for offering them up. I asked for some questions last night on this particular series because I like to get you involved, and especially for moments like these where everything is so new for Denver, trying to figure out how they're going to handle this moment, especially without Michael Malone. So will be interesting to see. Once again, I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. I did an article this morning that I had written it last night, posted this morning, something that I think I've been thinking about a lot lately, especially given the firing of Michael Malone. It's about procrastination and how Denver, I think, sort of procrastinated their way into the situation that they are. They didn't really focus up too much on the regular season in the moment. And now they're in this situation where everything's like, wow, communication, accountability, having each other's backs, things like that. There's a lot of buzzwords being thrown out there right now. And it feels like that probably should have been happening months ago, as opposed to after Michael Malone and Calvin Booth getting fired. So that's just my perspective. I've got some quotes in there from different folks and some different things, some different opinions on, did this really have to happen the way that it did? No, but now they're here, and hopefully this is the opportunity that Denver needs to kind of propel themselves forward. So make sure to go check that out at milehighsports.com. But for now, let's get into the Q&A. Let's talk about this. I don't have anything that's popping up on screen. There's just a lot going on, so I wasn't able to kind of put the questions up on screen, so my apologies. But I do have this Q&A from my Twitter, basically. So I asked a whole bunch of people what their questions were about the playoffs, about the LA Clippers, about the Nuggets, and just kind of everything related to the playoffs. And we'll start with this one from Cody Rourke. Shout out to Cody. He says, how do you envision the playoff rotation going? Likely to see long Jokic stretches of 40 plus if every single game is a dogfight. So let's talk about the playoff rotation then. I've actually got it pulled up here, put this together, and I think that it is nuanced. It's something, it's different in the first half and the second half based off of how things are supposedly going. This is going to be a fascinating breakdown. So basically what Denver would like to do in the first half of the first game is, I think they're going to try to play DeAndre Jordan, and they're going to try to see how it goes against Ben Simmons, Nick Batum, Kawhi Leonard. I don't think James Harden's going to be staggering, so that's a little bit better, but Norman Powell should be staggering a little bit. And because of that, I think Denver's going to try to keep DeAndre Jordan out there and see how it goes. I don't think it's going to work. And this is also, I previously had Zeke Naji in here, but you start to think about it and you start to realize, okay, is it better for Denver to try Zeke Naji or DeAndre Jordan in game 1? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there. So I think what Denver would like to do is try to set themselves up into a position where DeAndre Jordan is playing. He comes in for Jokic. It doesn't work. And then Denver decides, you know what? Screw it. We're going to go Aaron Gordon at 5. We're going to play him along with Michael Porter, Peyton Watson, Jamal Murray, and Jalen Pickett in the fourth quarter, get Russell Westbrook a little bit of a break. But I also have a feeling that Russell Westbrook is going to close game one. I think that's what's going to happen. I do not think that Michael Porter will close game one. He's going to stagger at the beginning of the fourth quarter. And depending on how he does, of course, he could close if things are looking good. But if Denver's especially struggling defensively, adding Russell Westbrook in there, who's somebody who could defend on the ball a little bit more, kind of match up with James Harden a little bit more than somebody like Michael Porter can, it actually does make some logical sense. So I'm not going to bemoan that. I think that Denver is in the position where you can't really look too hard at some of these things. It's just about who's going to be playing well at the end of the game. And as long as Russell Westbrook's kind of pointed the right direction, I think that Denver has an opportunity to close with him, get the first game, try to really hold down the fort, do the right things. So we will see. But I'm very curious to see how Michael Malone handles it. But yeah, I've got Jokic playing 40 minutes. I've got Jamal Murray playing 38. I think there were some folks on social that didn't think that Christian Brown would play 40 minutes. I'm here to tell you that he will. This is just what's going to happen. Denver needs the reliability factor, somebody who they can trust on the wing, who can be out there, be their KCP, be somebody that they don't necessarily need him to score all the time, but they're going to need the baseline that he provides in terms of the running, the cutting, the spacing, the defense, of course. They're going to need all of it. And I have Russell Westbrook and Peyton Watson each playing 20 minutes off the bench. I have Jalen Pickett playing 10. I have DeAndre Jordan playing 4, and Denver runs kind of an 8.5, 9-man rotation. And they will adjust, of course, in game 2. Should be interesting to see, but this is where I'm at with it. Hey, CT Fazio's in here. Pod's been getting me through the accounting month end and close, brother. Really, really appreciate it. They have been breaking me down, so I'm. I don't know if you guys can tell, I am descending closer and closer into madness over the course of these last few weeks. So we're doing my best, but hey, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the shout. Doing our best as always to put out the good content that everybody so appreciates. All right. Back over to the Q&A. Tyler Key asks, what will be more important in the Clippers series, Aaron Gordon's defense or Michael Porter's offense? It's a good question. I think that Aaron Gordon's defense is just kind of the vital baseline here. Anybody's defense really in this series to me is more important. I think that when you have Jokic and you have Murray, there is a certain baseline that you're going to get from those guys, a certain kind of floor that is already established, I think. And this is as long as Murray is pointed the right direction, as long as he's healthy. I think he is. David Adelman has said that he is. He looks good. He feels good. And obviously it's lying season. There's no doubt that these guys are probably lying and trying to joke out the other team and making it so that they are not ready for what's to come. But if Murray is ready and if he's pointed the right direction, Denver doesn't need that much more offense around that. Would it be nice? Sure. Would it be better if they had Porter adding 20 points per game and spacing the floor and doing all the right things to put Denver into the right position to keep their best 5 out there? Absolutely. But I also think it's one of the reasons why I think Russell Westbrook is going to close. I think that the defense is going to be more important in this particular series. And for Aaron Gordon specifically, if you can limit Kawhi Leonard, rather than him going 14 of 22 from the field, if he goes 10 of 22 from the field, if he goes 11 of 22 from the field, that could be seriously, that could be the difference between 6, 7, 8 points. And if that is what you're really talking about here, Denver's probably, if they are going to win this game, they're going to win it by 5. They're going to win it by 7. They're going to win it by 3. They are not going to win this by 26. This is going to be a close game. And that's just what the Clippers do. They will keep it tight. They will make things very difficult for Denver on the other end. There's a certain baseline that they have to reach, and maybe that's why Porter should be out there. But I just kind of look at the similarities between last year's T-Wolves team and this year's Clippers team, I think, okay, might not be the worst idea in the world to have a higher baseline defensively. And it's easier to do that without Porter out there. But hey, maybe he surprises. Maybe he's just making enough shots that you need to keep him on the floor. And I've also heard Clippers fans and analysts, of course, kind of lamenting the idea that they're going to have to guard Michael Porter with one of Norman Powell or Kawhi Leonard or James Harden in this particular series. Now, it would be great if they guarded him with Kawhi Leonard because that means that Aaron Gordon is being guarded by Powell or Harden. And so Denver does have their own mismatches that they can put out there and that they can really emphasize. So, yes, Porter's going to be targeted, but if he can dish it back in the same way, then that changes the entire dynamic here. It gives Denver more of an opportunity because I think I trust Porter to hold up reasonably well in isolation. Now, if he's just a tire fire on the defensive end, then that's a different thing. Then they'll have to pivot. And I kind of think that that's the direction that we're going. But there is a world where he shines, and there's a world where his offense does mean a lot. So good question from Tyler. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's do another one. Popeye's Biscuit. He asks, how on God's green earth are we supposed to make it through these playoffs with DJ and Zeke as our backups? It's a good question. I understand. They weren't supposed to. It was supposed to be Dario Saric. That was the goal. I think that it's going to be tough, man. Like, that's the thing. Aaron Gordon was supposed to be the backup 5. That was the impression that everybody was given, and that's what Denver's best look for with their benches, I think. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but I do think that you're probably just looking at AG at the 5 a lot. And congrats, Aaron. Like, you had a year from hell. It was a pretty tough season. It would be nice if there was another option that they could go to. Thank you, Calvin Booth, for not really putting that up, but I don't know. We'll see. Oh, that's my first sip of coffee today. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Yeah, not great to have to go with Zeke and DJ, but there are some other matchups that would be a little bit better for DJ. Although I've kind of gone through this. Clippers, really not a DJ series. Thunder, really not a DJ series. Lakers, really not a DJ series. Celtics, really not a DJ series. This is why guys like Zeke Naji and Aaron Gordon and Vlatko Čančar and Dario Saric and those guys were going to be important. And the fact that there's just such an unreliability in Denver whenever they go small right now, that I think is one of the failings of the regular season. Denver unable to find a good small ball lineup. Pretty bad, because you know that you can't play Jokic 48. So not being able to find that is pretty sad. And I think that Denver, if I'm being honest, if there's something in the offseason that I think needs to be addressed beyond just like personnel stuff and like, hey, is the core, does it fit perfectly well together? How are things going to go? You have to solve the non-Jokic like go-to lineup. Like whatever that is in the playoffs, you need somebody that you can trust in those situations, and more likely 5 somebodies that you can trust in those situations. But yeah, gonna be a tough one. That's definitely not gonna be easy. Justin Galt, he asks, how much do these playoffs impact extension talks with CB and PY? Does KSE potentially look to forego an extension with either to maximize trade options after the season? Justin, that is the question of the offseason beyond, like, is this core good enough? Like, it's a great question. Full posterity. I had a one-on-one with Peyton Watson yesterday, and there's an article that I've got coming out that will probably come out on Saturday morning before the game. I wanted to ask about the extension because I thought that there were, like, it's obviously a very interesting question in terms of how Denver is going to handle things. He didn't want to talk about it, and I don't blame him for not wanting to talk about it. You don't want to throw in um, drama and things like that into the mix before a playoff run, and that, to me, that says good things about Peyton Watson and who he is as a player and how much he cares. Um, and yet, like, Christian Brown, I think, is stamped in terms of, like, he's gonna get 20 million a year. Like, that to me is pretty much locked in stone. If he's a starter for a team, he's gonna get 20 million. With Peyton, it's not so sure because teams are still not quite sure who he is. And it's why I wanted to interview Peyton, because he is so interesting and his spot for Denver is so interesting right now. So I'm really curious to see how it goes. But yeah, like, to answer your question, let me just go back through it and read it a little bit. Um, they certainly impact, like, these playoffs, they will certainly impact the extension talks. And you are right that if it does come down to kind of need to think about trades, you may not want to extend one or both of them because they are the most valuable kind of trade chips that Denver has. Um, you don't necessarily want to think about that right now before a playoff run, but it's something that I'll be thinking about after. It's something that I will be thinking about just in terms of what Denver decides they want to do. So curious to see how it goes. Mike P asks, will the Nuggets exercise the team option on Jalen Pickett? Probably. It is a cheap enough player. It's a cheap enough team option, and he's proven enough that he probably, like, does deserve to be back. And Bahira says, Bariha, excuse me. Hey, Ryan, remember when you and Matt were telling us fans how we don't know how the NBA works and we shouldn't even be talking about replacing Malone? You're not so smug now, aren't you? Yeah, I didn't think that Denver would do something as unprecedented as firing their coach in the final week of the season. Also, I thought it was the wrong decision and still think it's the wrong decision. I don't really care. Putting so much of the fall on the coach alleviates the players from any of the wrongdoing that they have done, and they've done a lot of wrongdoing over the course of this past year. And yeah, no, I don't think that this is going to go the way that Nuggets fans hope that it does. So yeah, am I being smug? I don't know. I like Malone. I don't think that that's smugness. I think that it was honestly stupid the way that this went. And Denver and the entire organization should feel bad about the way that this went. They failed Malone in a lot of ways. I don't know. They failed that guy. It's very frustrating to me. So we'll see. We'll talk. We'll have plenty of time to talk about this, and I think that there will be plenty of time for because, like, hypothetically, Denver's out of the playoffs in 10 days, and I'm coming right back to that comment of being like, I guess he wasn't the entire problem. So, look, I want Denver to be successful. I do. I want them to go win the championship now. But yeah, there's a lot of failure that happened this year. Crazy. All right. Let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to chat about David Adelman's role in this, X factors. We already predicted the game one playoff rotation, but there's just a lot to get to, and we're going to try to get to it all here on Pickaxe and Roll. Smug. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn, thank you so much for tuning into the show. Appreciate the love and support on the podcast as always, folks. If you can, it'd be awesome if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the show on the Apple side of things. That would be great. Hit the like button here if you can. I do my best as always to put out the best content, and it's been a long year, so would really appreciate a nice 5-star review. That would go a long way. Really quickly, as always, this podcast is Brought to you by the good folks over at SCL Mortgage, who are good friends over in the mortgage industry. And they're a company that you can trust. Hundreds of happy customers and a 5-star reputation. They specialize in loans for the self employed. If you need a down payment on a new home, if you need a second mortgage, there's plenty of ways that SCL Mortgage can help you achieve your dreams. They specialize in assisting people with unusual financing needs as well as those with great credit. Call 303-790-2222 or visit myspecialmortgage.com. All right, let's get back into it here. Very interesting time in Nuggets history. This is a very big pivot point, of course, when you lose a coach that you've had for a decade, when you fire or you let go of a general manager. Everything's kind of in flux. Past, present, and future kind of converging at one point right now, and how Denver handles this is going to be very interesting. So let's get back to the questions. Lock-in basketball, he asks, do you think David Adelman will run the traditional Jokic rotation in game one, play all the first and third, out the first 6 minutes of the second and fourth, no matter the score? I don't know. We've only ever seen Adelman in 3 games. Denver's kind of run things pretty similarly. Yeah. There's a lot here that I think we could discuss in terms of how Denver would pivot. But I do think that Denver knows that, and David Adelman knows especially, that you can't play Jokic 48 if you want to win a championship. You have to be reliant on other people. You have to be able to get Jokic some breaks. And the first 3 minutes or so of the second quarter and the fourth quarter is more likely, I would say, than the first 6 minutes. I think that he's going to play about 40 to 42. Maybe Denver can get him a little bit of extra time if things go well for a bench stint or two. But yeah, if Denver right now can get Jokic to play 36 minutes in a game, that's a win. Every playoff minute effectively is like 2 to 3 regular season minutes in terms of what the intensity is like and the attention to detail is like and how serious it is. So if over the course of a playoff run, and like Denver doesn't necessarily need to worry about this because I don't think they're going to be in the playoffs for that long. And if they make it past the Clippers, then they still have to face the Thunder. But hypothetically, if they get through those series and Jokic is averaging 36 minutes a night, that's way better than averaging 42 minutes a night, because if you play 12 games in between those two series and you play an extra 4 minutes, that's another 50 minutes, which is honestly closer to like 100 to 150 minutes in the regular season. So I know that math, like me saying it verbally, I'm still pretty tired, but like I think what I'm kind of getting it across is that the more Jokic plays, the more tired he's going to get later in the playoffs. So if you can get yourself into a position where he's playing like 32, holy cow, like that'd be quite something. I do not expect it to happen, nor should you. But if Denver's in that position, then great. Try to run with it for as long as you can. Next question here. Jeff Dillon asks, how will the Nuggets slow down Norman Powell? He lit up the Nuggets. He lit the Nuggets up, especially in the first couple of games. Actually, even in the fourth game, he had 30 points on like 15 shots. So like Norman Powell, 28 points per game against Denver on like a 70% true shooting. He is dope. And like as they scored, Denver did not respect him, or they did not stay attached to him enough in order to make it happen. I think that Murray is going to be locked in on Powell. I think that he's going to be the one that is going to be responsible for that. But it's also one of the reasons why I think that Michael Porter may not be on the floor as often in some of these clutch situations. You might be seeing Russell Westbrook come in for Michael Porter, Peyton Watson come in for Michael Porter. Either of those guys, I think, moves to James Harden, and Christian Brown then moves to Norman Powell, and he's the one who is then chasing him around. And I honestly think, like, If you told Christian Brown that he has to chase around Norman Powell and deny some shots and make sure to not foul, he can do that. Like, this is Norman Powell that we're talking about. This is not like Steph Curry. This is Norman Powell. And now the famous last words. So if Norman Powell goes off, you know where to complain. But I do think that Denver, if they are going to win this series, it's going to be because Norman Powell is averaging a lower true shooting, points per 36, whatever you want to go with, a lower scoring number than would be expected. And I think that they can do that. I think that Murray can do that, honestly. I don't think that this is like a crazy thing. It's about attention to detail. It's about staying attached. It's about doing the things that you weren't willing to do in the regular season and working hard. And so can Denver go all out in those situations? Sure. Will Norman Powell still get off some shots? Yes. Will he miss some shots that he probably should make? Yes. Will he make some shots that are crazy? Absolutely. So it's going to be a game to game thing. I think that if Denver can get away with one of Murray or Porter on Powell, that is a big deal. If they can't, then that causes a chain reaction of things in terms of getting Denver's offense to be worse than it is, because then you probably have to take Porter off the floor. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. Next question. Dean asks, what is different about how teams tried to guard Murray during the championship season versus now? Did the scheme change? Did Jamal change? Nothing really changed. Like, I remember in those playoffs, like they tried to do the same things. Now, the difference was there's not as many athletes and physical players that they ran into in those playoff years. And then there was also Murray was giving up the ball pretty consistently in a lot of those times. I just think he was more hurt at the end of last year's playoffs. Now, hamstring's hurting him this time around, but apparently he sounds pretty like he's in a pretty good spot. He's playing pretty well. He's moving pretty well. So we'll see how that goes. But in general, if Denver gets a great version of Murray, if they get the version of Murray that was in 2023 on a consistent basis, then they have a great opportunity to win multiple playoff rounds. If they don't, then like other guys are going to have to step up, and Murray may have to take a back seat a little bit. So it's not a great situation, but I do think that like if Jaden McDaniels is pressuring you, if Nickeil Alexander-Walker's pressuring you, Anthony Edwards, it's a little bit different than like Josh Okogie in the Sun series or Gabe Vincent in the Miami series or Dennis Schroeder in the Lakers series. Like those were the main guys that were guarding Murray later in the playoffs then, and it's not the same. So I don't know. We'll see how he handles it, but I think that Murray's going to be pretty good. Honestly, I think going up against Chris Dunn, yes, it's a very tough matchup, but I think he'll be able to match that. I think he'll be able to figure some stuff out. And Denver's going to have to adjust. They're going to have to come up with some different ways that they could create consistent opportunities for him, but I think that they can do it. So we will see. L. Stevenson asks, what is the most striking difference between the way Malone coached a playoff game and the way you expect Adelman to coach the game? I don't really have that many differences. But what we saw in the first three games that Adelman played was that whoever was playing well, he rode with them. And whoever wasn't playing well, he didn't stick it out with them. He just cut the cord and was like, no, we're going to go with this guy instead. And that was with Jalen Pickett and Russell Westbrook at times. It was with Peyton Watson at times. It was with mostly Denver's bench guys. But the starters played pretty well over the course of those last three games. I would say all of them. Jokic especially, Christian Brown especially. Jamal Murray, when he came back, wasn't good. But then Adelman trusted him. So if there's a couple of guys that even if they're not playing well, Adelman is going to trust, I think Murray is one. I think Jokic is another. Wonder what happens with Gordon. Like if he doesn't play well, if he's really struggling, let's say he's struggling with the Kawhi matchup, would they play Peyton Watson over Aaron Gordon? Would they play Russell Westbrook and try to have him body up against Kawhi? I don't know. They kind of need Aaron. So if he's not going well, I think Adelman probably sticks with him anyway. But that's a tough place for him to be. So in terms of how he's going to handle it, he was very much more relaxed, very much more calm. I think he was trying to do that more so than anything. Like this wasn't it was a conscious effort. It was not an accident that he was not trying to kind of do what Malone was doing in terms of getting on refs, in terms of getting on guys, making sure like storming onto the court and having a timeout, things like that. So we'll see whether he can keep it reined in. We'll see what the playoffs kind of do to guys, but it changes everybody. So the pressure is going to really mount. I'm curious to see how he handles it, but this will be the first time that he's been put onto the big stage like that. And who knows how he's going to handle it. Like this could go any number of ways, but it does seem like he's ready for it. The way that he's talked, the way that he's kind of indicated this, I think he's going to be all right. So we'll be interested to see. All right. We're already at the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to do 2 more questions, and then we're going to get out of here. Son Huya asks, who is the Nuggets X factor to win this opening round series? Who is the Nuggets X factor? I expect Jokic and Murray to kind of have a baseline. Like you know what you're going to get from them. Maybe with Murray, you're a little bit more shaky in terms of the efficiency, but I think you know how the opposing team is going to guard them, how they're going to play. I'm going to go ahead and say Russell Westbrook. He is the guy that I think is most likely, if Michael Porter really struggles, to kind of keep up in terms of the defense and if his shot isn't going down. I think that Russell Westbrook is the guy that's going to get the first crack at cracking that closing rotation, at being a guy that they trust, somebody that's going to initiate a lot of offense. And they're gonna that's a dangerous game because the Clippers are a former team. You're going to be in LA. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Russ. He didn't finish the regular season overall that well, but the last couple of games were pretty good. So we will see just how he handles it. But Denver needs another ball handler outside of Murray. It's one of the things that, like, if they're going to press Murray into oblivion, they need somebody else who can bring the ball up the floor. They need somebody else who can initiate some offense. And then they could use Murray to try to get free off ball. But I'm curious to see how they handle it. Curious to see what Murray looks like. And if he doesn't look perfect, then Russ is probably going to play a lot more than I think people expect. So I think that Russ can make an impact on the defensive end. He's a hustler. He's somebody that knows the opposing team extremely well. And if he's a guy that can kind of get you an edge in certain moments, then you should try to use that. So it just would not surprise me at all if he changes the series in certain ways. And that could be good or bad, like depending on how he operates. If he is too wild, if he's committing turnovers, if he is making some mistakes, then yeah, that could absolutely hurt Denver. But he could also really change it in terms of a key block at a certain points, setting up Jokic and putting him into a position to succeed, going to the rim and getting all the way there because teams don't want to leave Jokic, but you need somebody who's a little bit more comfortable with dribbling and handling the basketball. Like, there's ways that he could absolutely change the game in a positive way for Denver, and I'm looking forward to seeing if he can do it. So, X factor, you don't know what you're going to get, but if it's good, it changes your win percentage in a very positive way. And if you lose, if he's not good, you're probably out. So, a lot riding on Russell Westbrook in this series. And I'll do a final comment here. Joe D and Nola asks, who wins the most minutes off the bench between Pickett, P-Watt, Strother, and Zeke? In reverse order, I do not think that Strother will play at all in this series. I would be shocked if he played more than like 5 real minutes. Maybe that's all it takes. And maybe Denver just needs some spacing. Maybe that's something that they try to do. Zeke, I think, plays the second least. He's somebody that they are still trying to figure out how to rely upon, and if he can be a player that delivers things for them. I will say, like, this is definitely a Zeke series if in terms of you need an isolation defender, you need somebody who's got some size to match up with a guy like Kawhi. Like, you want somebody who can be a big physical body. And Zeke is honestly pretty good for that among Denver's options. So can he handle any responsibility on the offensive end? I have no idea. But can he help them defensively? Sure. So I think that P-Watt will play the most minutes. I think that Pickett will play the second most. I think that Zeke will play the third most, and I think that Strother will play the least. That would be my prediction going into this thing. And who knows? Maybe that's right. Maybe that's wrong. But I do think that like Pickett has an opportunity that if Russ really struggles, Pickett could step up. He's a steady option, but he could make some big shots. He could make some big plays. He's got to be in the right place defensively. We'll see how it goes, but I do think that Denver needs at least one of those guys to step up. And if it's P-Watt, then that's understandable, and that makes the most sense to me. But who knows? Maybe it could be one of the other three. That would be great. All right, everybody. That was a lot. I hope that you guys enjoyed the show. Denver has a lot of pressure on them, of course. Josh Kroenke previously said that he was trying to remove all of the pressure. He says that he thinks there is no pressure. I think that's whack. I think that there is no way that any of those players feel like there's no pressure, especially after you fire the coach and the GM. If Denver goes out in the first round, things will change. If they advance, then you start to kind of recover some of that mojo a bit. And I said this on the show yesterday. If Denver does advance, they kind of remind me of a boulder moving downhill, rolling downhill, where it just kind of picks up momentum, picks up steam, and you may not be able to stop it. So that's the hope, is that Denver sets himself up into a good place and they just roll downhill. But if they never get going, then you're going to see some changes. So I'm curious to see how they handle it, but looking forward to seeing what happens. That is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at SCL Mortgage. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I'll be back. I think I'm going to do a show tomorrow night. Easter Sunday is going to prevent me from doing a show kind of in that morning, and I know I want to get out a reaction episode for Game 1. So you might have to adjust to my schedule. So apologies if it's a little weird, but we'll see what happens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I will talk to you guys very soon.